Hey guys, welcome back to the Tea Party Podcast. It's a podcast where you find new friends and new music. And this week I'm joined by a guy who knows the definition of hard work in Nashville, and he's got a brand new single out called Made for Me. And heck, you might have even seen him on stage with a guitar playing with Cannon Smith or Chase Rice. And yeah, I'm talking about Jason Nix. Jason, man, thanks for jumping on here with me.
Dude, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely, man. And before we get too far into this, let's give everybody kind of the Wikipedia version of the Jason Nix story. Where'd you grow up? How'd you get into music?
Man, well, I got into music because of my dad. So my dad played bluegrass, and we lived in Nashville. I was born in Nashville, and I lived here for about 5 years and moved back to South Mississippi, and I grew up there. So I joke and tell people that's where I did all my hard learning, but I lived there until until the day after I graduated and moved back to Nashville. And when I was down there, I played with a band locally, like mostly in churches and stuff like that, and kind of toured around. And I always knew, kids have daydreams, and for me, it was either riding a dirt bike at the time for whatever reason, or playing music is always what I would waste time thinking about. But I got back to Nashville in 2005, just as soon as I could, and started doing that. So it was really all because of my dad. And so I grew up. Even when we moved back to Mississippi, he would always be playing with a group of people, and so I would go sit in on those for fun. There wasn't much to do where I grew up except burn gas, or for me it was play music, and you could usually find me doing one of the two. But I got my dad to thank for that, and so I got back up here, and I think it was kind of me kind of wanting to finish what he started in a way. It's kind of how I kind of went about it. I knew that I wanted to do it. It's kind of like a disease. Once it's in you, you kind of have to let it play out. So I'm still here 15 years later, man. We're still kicking.
There you go. Did your dad play music for a living, or was it kind of just like on the side?
He did. He played for a living. It's really hard to make a living in bluegrass because if you consider pop music, you can make a killing, and with country music generally you make a little bit less. But with bluegrass, it's low. It's real low on the totem pole as far as how much money you can make. So, which I'm sure is part of the reason that we moved back to Mississippi. His family was there, and and he wound up not playing music full time. We got down there. He got any job he needed to support us. He sacrificed a lot to make that happen. And if I put myself in his shoes now, man, thinking about giving this up to do that, definitely would. But man, it'd be tough. So yeah, he did play full time, and then when we moved down there, he did it recreationally, and so felt like I needed to come back and do that.
Kind of finish the story up. I like it. I like it a lot, man. Do you remember how old you were when you actually started playing music, or was it just one of those things that you've been around your whole life and it just kind of happened?
No, I was. First time I was ever on stage was at Station Inn in Nashville. My dad was playing a gig, and they've got a picture of it somewhere, but it's me holding this little fiddle that he bought me. He always wanted me to play fiddle. So that's I've always been around it. Obviously, the first time I ever played in front of anybody, he got me to sing with them at this show back in Mississippi, and they did it at Lake Lincoln was the name of the state park, and it was the closest park to us. And so they were playing the pavilion down there, and he's like, oh, my mom had agreed. She's like, I'll buy you this new George Strait cassette if you sing Carrying Your Love With Me Tonight. And I was so nervous, like your voice gets shaky. I sounded like I was, I was trying to impress the people in the opera community. I was just out of my mind nervous. But that was the first time I remember being on stage, really trying to perform at that point. Seriously, it was a train wreck. But
hey, it seems like it's worked out since then. You refine those nerves a little bit, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you learn how to use them, I guess. Yeah. It's not as fun if you don't get nervous. I will say that. That's
true. I can imagine that. I imagine, once the nerves start to go away, it kind of loses its luster a bit.
Oh, it's so boring. Yeah. You don't want, I never wanted to get to that point completely,
So, while we're talking about your dad, you and him have another pretty cool connection, and it's a 71 Chevelle, right?
Yeah. So I grew up around I grew up around that. My dad went to Nashville Auto Diesel College in Nashville when he was younger, and so I grew up around him working on cars, and I never wanted anything to do with it, to be honest with you. Mostly because it always turned into to me handing him the wrong tools and
Yeah.
him getting
Yep.
pissed
No,
off about something.
I know exactly how that is. My dad races at the local circle track, so when I'm out there helping him work
Yes.
on his cars,
God, man,
go get
we
that
love
wrench,
that
no, not
stuff.
that one.
We love that stuff. So we used to do that stuff as a family all the time. Now, back home, it was dirt track, and I still got some family that race dirt track, and I would love to get into it. My brother and I actually were just talking about buying a car and starting to do it just for fun. But anyway, that aside, yeah, we grew up around it. Me and my two brothers, and so at the time I didn't want anything to do with it. And then the day I got the day after I graduated college, I got married. So, and it didn't last long. We're talking about like junior high,
Yeah.
junior high sweethearts kind of a thing, at least in my mind. But I was an idiot. And so when we got divorced like a year later, and I was like, man, I'm not spending, I don't have to buy high heels anymore. So I needed a project to get my mind off of it, is what was going on. And I was like, well, I really want to, I think I want to buy a car. My dad was like, yeah. And I found this guy on Craigslist. I was actually going to buy a 65 Mustang, and I really wanted a Chevy because that's what we always grew up around. And sorry for the Ford guys. And but I found this guy, and he said he had this Chevelle, and I was like, well, this is great. And I called him, and I was like, hey man, I've got $1,500 in my pocket. I was like, I can come get it right now. He said, yeah. I called my dad, and he was like, okay. And he literally dropped everything he was doing. We went and picked up a trailer, and we pulled the car out of a field that night and started working on it then. And it's 3 engines and 4 transmissions later, after I've torn it up a few times, but it's something fun that I can look forward to having him help me. And it's a good way for me to have time with him, honestly,
Well,
that I wouldn't
you
usually
still
get.
have it?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll never get rid of it. I've got that in a 64 Chevy C10 that we also work on. I mean, there's cars. I've had so many cars come in and out. It's like very expensive adult toys is what they are for me. It's like I'm always buying something because I'm like, oh, how cool would it be to have this, and then I find it cheap, and then I'm like, go buy it, and then so me and my dad will tinker with it, and I just sold a car. I feel like I'm trying to like get rid of some of the stuff now because my wife and I are trying to build a house, but it's like I want all the old cars I can get, and I have an infatuation with them. But it's time I get to spend with my dad is part of the reason why. It's turned into something a lot bigger than cars, and I've met some of my best friends through our quote unquote car buddies now that I've met that are also into the same thing. And I don't know, it's a great way to meet people, and even if they are in the music community, it's a break to not talk about music for a little bit and just kind of, I don't know, just meet up and go out to eat. I don't know, there's something really cool about having it's like a time machine, I think, is what it is, where I can just get away from right now, and it's really nice for me, man. But yeah, I love them.
And I think when people see those types of cars, like, they don't even have to be car people, but they're kind of at that age now where it's like, oh, look at that cool car that they put that effort and restoration work in. It's not even about the car anymore. Now it's people look at it and they're like, oh, look at what they did to that giant hunk of metal.
Yeah, exactly. I get we'll go to like car shows for fun and stuff, but most of the attention I get is from like younger kids who've seen like the Mad Max movies, because I don't know if you've seen pictures of my car, but the whole thing, everything underneath it is brand new. Like we put in the work and rebuilt an engine and put it in it, and so it runs like a scalded dog, and everything is new and safe, minus the fact that I don't have seat belts, but that's beside the point.
Details.
Yeah, minor details. It's totally fine, but a lot of the attention I get are like from kids who've seen Mad Max, because the car looks like a piece of crap. It looks awful, but it's fun, and yeah, I don't know, man. I love them. I don't know. I'm glad you asked about that.
They're so easy to I don't want to say easy to work on, but they're easier to work on now than some of the other cars that are out there. So if you like tinkering on cars, I mean, that's definitely the way to go, is to get one like that.
Exactly, man. Unless you're, naturally prone to be like the computer programmer type, which I feel like you kind of have to be to work on some of the new stuff. But yeah, it's easy for anybody to do, and which is the only reason, a lot of my friends now, especially in Nashville, like a lot of the artists are getting into it. They're like, man, thinking about buying something, buying an older car. I'm like, well, yeah, go for it. He was like, will you help me work on it? I was like, yeah, but the chances are I'm going to be learning with you. But the cool thing about it is you can, at least you can learn it. You can fix it. That's the one thing I do love about the old stuff, is that if something breaks, I don't have to take it somewhere. I can, do it on my own. So,
Well, and the Chevelle's the car that's in the Money's on You music video, right?
yeah. They're all, yes, yeah.
So if anybody's seen that music video, you've seen the car. If you haven't, go out and find the music video, of course.
Yeah, I would love if you did that.
Well, we'll get into that song and the other one here coming up. But we talked about it. You're born in Nashville, moved to Mississippi. Was it the music that brought you back to Nashville, and was it something that you knew that you were going to do, throughout high school? Because you moved back like right after high school, right?
Yeah. I mean, just as soon as I could. Yeah, I knew. Well, it was just always there. I knew that I had to try to do it, or I would be miserable for the entirety of my life. So yeah, in my head, I remember, even as a very young kid, telling my parents that, I was moving back up, and so yeah, it was always something that I felt like I needed to do, like I had to do. So,
What was that like, being such a young guy moving back out to Nashville? Did you have connections out there, or was it something where you were just kind of flying by the seat of your pants?
I didn't know anybody, man. I remember one of my mentors, and I love him so much, but even he told me, he was like, "You'll be back in 6 months." And people, it seems crazy. There's nothing wrong with the town that I grew up in at all. I love it. The people are incredible. But I feel like in a lot of small towns, sometimes it seems nuts to move somewhere that seems so much bigger, even though Nashville, it was so much smaller 15 years ago than it is today, and start completely over, when you don't know anybody. But, and it's important for me that people know there's nothing wrong with where I'm from. The people are great. I love them. I couldn't do what I felt like I was created to do there and still be able to put food on the table. And so I had 3 options. It was either Los Angeles, Nashville, or New York. And I wasn't moving to Los Angeles or New York. So, yeah, I knew.
Narrowed it down pretty quick for you then.
Yeah. I knew from a young age I wanted to be back in Nashville. But yeah, it was definitely music. It was music that got me there.
What was that journey like when you showed up in Nashville? I mean, you talk about New York and LA, and I mean, it's almost like an actor moving to LA to try and find their little niche. I mean, that's kind of what it's like as a musician moving out to Nashville, isn't it?
Yeah, I think for anybody who's like self-aware enough, I think it would be very similar to discovering who you are. I mean, it took me, I don't feel like I really settled into my being comfortable with myself. Sorry, my dog is trying to talk to you too. I don't know if you can hear him or not, but I don't think, as a person, I don't think I really got comfortable with who I actually was until about 27. But and music for me followed that. I don't know if artists ever intentionally create a character to be on stage, to be somebody different on stage, just to be entertaining. But I have a hard time doing that. So I feel like my growth as a person and my growth in my music kind of went hand in hand, if that makes any sense. So the more comfortable I got with myself, the more comfortable I got with, going back to my roots. When I first got to town, I tried to do a pop rock thing, and I started working with a producer here in town, and man, it was awful. It was really awful. And it wasn't his fault. It was my fault, but it was bad. Yeah. So the older I got, I'm like, you know what? Like, this is stuff I grew up on. Just let me be who I am. And then everything started to kind of fall into place.
So when you got there, did you jump right into being able to make money in music, or was there some other side jobs that you're trying to juggle at the same time?
Oh my gosh, man. Lots of side jobs. I started going to Broadway and met a few people because I knew I would never get a gig by you know, just showing up, and it wasn't going to fall into my lap. While I was doing that, at one point, I had three different jobs. But yeah, it turned into a situation where I would play on Broadway every night from 10:30 to close, which was 2:30, and then by the time I loaded out, it would be 3. And I drove a minivan at the time that I love. I'm such an advocate for minivans, but I drove that minivan straight from that gig at 3:30 in the morning to the shop that I worked at, and I would sleep in my car until about an hour before the shop opened, and I would wake up and clean the shop and get ready for the day and work till 5 and go back and do it all over again. So
Yeah, that really is the hustle life.
well, I'm not a special case by any means. I mean, I'm sure you'll find the same thing in other cities where people are trying to chase a dream. I mean, it makes people crazy, man. It seems, and that's probably why people in my hometown were like, "Oh, you're absolutely nuts." But yeah, I am nuts, man.
That's not always a bad thing.
No, man. Love makes you do some crazy things, and I loved it. I do love it that much. And you'll find 100 other people in this town who've done the same thing. So it's not like I don't tell that story for it to be like a sob story, like, oh, look how much I sacrificed, because there are people doing it every day. There are people sleeping in their cars now, getting ready to go play a gig somewhere, I'm sure. But yeah, music is it holds some kind of crazy spell. But yeah, I did that for a while until things kind of took off, and then one day I was playing a gig for just a sit-in gig at Hard Rock Cafe, just playing acoustic guitar and singing background vocals for a buddy of mine, and then Kanan Smith walked up, and then that's how I started touring with Kanan. The whole thing, it's just it's very strange how things just start falling into place, and I could go on and on and on about that, but I won't, because I will talk your head off.
Well, I mean, it really seems like, just from doing this podcast, what we've really learned is exactly that sometimes it's just you luck out that the right guy or girl happens to be in the room when you're just doing your everyday average thing after you've been grinding for so long. But you went out on the road with Kanan Smith and Chase Rice, and from the outside, I mean, it seems like, the way that you described it, he walks up to you and he's like, "Hey, come play guitar for me." But
that was literally it,
from the
man.
outside, is it really that simple?
It was, well, I don't know. So, I wanted to be an artist. A sideman is not really what I wanted to be. And Kanan knew that eventually. But the conversation went like this. He was like, "Hey, man, I'm going on radio tour in a couple of weeks. Would you be interested in playing guitar for me?" And I said, "Yeah." And I told that I needed a reason to get out of town. I'd just gotten, recently divorced at that point, and the only thing I had holding me back was a car that didn't run, right? So I'm like, yeah, let's go. Let's get out of town. I didn't really know Kanan. I'd seen him because we went to school together at Belmont. But man, yeah, he quickly became almost like a brother to me. He's such a great guy. He was a great boss, easy to work for. But we did the first radio tour together. We did the Sugarland tour together back in 2012, the year after the accident happened there with the storm, and the sound equipment kind of fell. And but so we did that together, and we did I did a bunch of one-off stuff with him, and I did one more radio tour with him, and then I decided that I needed to I wasn't getting any younger, so I needed to really try to hone in and start doing what I needed to do to get things rolling for me. So, and he totally understood. But yeah, Kanan, I actually just talked to him the other day. He's an incredible friend still. But it was so crazy how it worked out, because we didn't have a relationship before. He literally walked up and asked if I wanted to play guitar.
That's one of those super cool, like, Nashville only kind of stories, though. I mean, you don't get that kind of thing if you're playing in a bar in Vegas, typically.
No,
man. You have to be in the right town for that to happen.
It is wild. I'm pretty disconnected. I had no idea that he was with Mercury, the label that he was with at the time. I had no idea he was signed, so I was like, yeah, I just wanted a gig to get out of town, and it turned into something so much cooler than that.
So how much did that help you, as you're an artist yourself trying to break out into that solo artist kind of field, but how much did that help you going out on the road with him, especially the radio tours, and just kind of seeing what that process looks like from the inside?
Well, I haven't been on a radio tour myself, so I can't really testify to how much that's helped me. But I will say I did learn a lot about, I guess, about how to perform. I made a lot of mistakes. I'll say that. I made a lot of mistakes, and like going back, it's almost like game footage. You go back and watch the show and you're like, oh, that's weird. Why did I do that? Like, that doesn't look like something people would want to watch at all. Like if I would see myself doing that, I'd be like, what's he doing over there? So I learned a lot about what not to do, I think, during that time period. And I think actually one of the biggest teachers of that was the time I got to spend on Broadway, honestly, because you're playing, 4 hours at a time nonstop. And you have no choice but to get better at your craft. For me, it was mostly guitar then. So I got a lot better at guitar. And, they're teachers, man. That was a great teacher. If anybody's ever moving to Nashville and wants to get better, just go get a gig on Broadway. That's what I say.
There you go. I like it, man. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about what you're doing now. You've got a new EP coming out in September, and you were kind enough to share a couple of songs on that. The first one we have here is one that you put out back in June called Money on You. We just talked about the music video, but how did this song itself come together?
Man, it's not a very romantic story at all. I was on a real big like CCR kick and digging back into some of the Eagles stuff. I don't listen to a lot of music, but when I do, it's usually like older stuff. And only because there's something about I love anything that just makes me want to drive. I can't say you because I think that music is different for everybody. But I was riding with Brett Beavers, who I met through Kanan, actually, because Brett was produced that first Kanan record and also produced the early Dierks Bentley stuff. And so I was riding with Brett and Lindsey Rhymes that day. And I came in and we usually sit down and we have a list of titles that we'll all go through and be like, oh, what do you think about this idea? What do you think about this? And so I had Money on You, which is not, we're not reinventing the wheel here. We were pretty much every day we're writing about love or love lost or, there's only so many things you can write about. So we knew what we're doing. And so our goal is to try to just do the same thing in a different way, right? So I said, is it cool if we just have fun today and just make it feel good? And Brett is an incredible bass player. And that's how he actually started his career, was playing bass for different people. And I think Martina McBride was his main gig when he was touring a lot. So I was like, Brett, would you like just play bass? And can we kind of do that, kind of feel? And so he does that. And I was like, okay, can we just keep it like bass and drums? Because I just wanted it to groove, right? And I'm like, I'm totally cool with not playing guitar on this thing until later. But it actually started out with just a feeling that I was chasing. And then the lyrics came. It's not like we were just trying to paint the picture of can I put myself in a car, and even if I'm sitting in the house, does it make me feel like I want to go drive somewhere? And that's what we were doing. And then the opening line, I'm as free as the highway wind blows, comes out. And then it all comes from there. But yeah, the whole thing, we were just chasing. I had the title. We were just chasing a feeling is all it was. I just wanted to have fun with it. I spent most of my songwriter career trying to write songs that were going to change the world. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I just, I wanted to write something that would be fun for me to play, and it would just make me feel good. And that's all that was.
Well, and really with this song, one of the things that really jumped out at me was just the power of the instruments and how prevalent they are. Like, obviously your vocals are there. People can hear them. They can hear the story of the song. But I feel like I can really hear every individual instrument kind of being showcased. Was that intentional?
No, that's the work of a good mix engineer. Yes, it was. I'll tell you what was intentional. Aaron Esice is the guy who was producer on here, and we made the demo to where actually we did all the demos to where we have a clear picture of exactly what we wanted. And Aaron knew going in through our conversations who actually, and as a side note, I met Aaron playing on Broadway. So it's another testament to the power of Broadway. But he knew that I wanted it to be the rule I wanted to have for the music that I do is I want it to be all real instruments played by real people, and mainly because I really want, that's where the magic happens for me. I mean, there's a lot of really cool sounds that people can create with a computer when you're programming things, but there's nothing like being with a group of people on a stage or in a living room or on a porch, wherever you are, and playing together. And then every once in a while something happens where it just feels like magic, man. And so I wanted to, that happened a few times that day when we were cutting that EP. And I wanted to be able to try to capture that, but also give myself the opportunity to be able to find that on a stage when we finally get to go play and tour again. You know what I'm saying? Because there's something that really cool that happens with that as opposed to when you're running a ton of tracks. And that's not to say that I will never run tracks ever, but I really am trying my best to hold on to the things that started it all, you know, the things that are real for me anyway, you know?
Well, and you can definitely feel that in the music, that it's very true to the sound of what these instruments are. I mean, you don't have an unrealistic bass line that somebody couldn't play in real life. It's something that's true to what the instrument should sound like.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, and Mark Hill played bass, and he's, you know, incredible. But yeah, but thank you. That's exactly what we were aiming for. We were just aiming for something. We're just good, real music is what we were trying to do. That's it. Nothing. And you know, and people will say, well, it's not country. No, it's not Merle Haggard, but it's, you know, it's real, and it's kind of old rock and roll. But you know, we're saying things in my Southern Mississippi way too. So it's you know, it's my kind of country anyway.
Here, let's let everybody take a listen to it. This one's called "Money on You" by Jason Nix.
I'm as free as a highway wind blows. Been a train always leaving town. Lord, I never rolled a 7 when it came to letting a woman ever settle me down. But if anyone could get me falling on and feeling like I can't lose, I got my money on you. Tell me in, baby, my money's on you. Whatever game that you're playing, these hands will keep winning just as long as they're holding you on it. Hey girl, I got my money on you. You're the rock that can keep me from rolling down that bend there dead end road. You're the ace I've been needing to keep up my sleeve. You're the lucky streak I feel coming on. But if anyone could hit me with a kiss and get me hanging up my bone to rock boots, I got my money on you. Tell me in, baby, my money's on you. Whatever game that you're playing, hey, these hands will keep winning just as long as they're holding you on it. Hey girl, I got my money on you. Yeah. Now all my chips are on the table. So much for not showing my hand. Blindsided by your love and didn't see it coming. Too good to not go all in. I got my money on you. Yeah, my money's on you. Yeah, I got my money on you. Tell me in, baby, my money's on you. Whatever game that you're playing, ooh, these hands will keep winning just as long as they're holding you, honey. Hey girl, I got my money on you. Lord, I got my money on you.
that one came out in June from Jason Nix. It's called Money on You. And now that we have a feel of what your music sounds like, what's it look like when you're writing a song? What's your songwriting process?
It usually starts with an idea. Most of the time for me, I keep a running list on my 15-pound PC laptop that I carry with me to every write. I keep a list on there, and I have a list on my phone. I have a list. It's just wherever I am that an idea hits me, I'll write it down there. But I keep the ideas. So for me, it usually starts with an idea, and from there, a lot of times I prefer to write backwards. Now everybody does it a little bit differently. A lot of guys will, if they're writing with a guy who does tracks, they'll come in and the guy will have a few different tracks that you can pick from. And if I'm doing that, I'll usually listen to the track and be like, okay, well, what does that make me feel like? And I'll go through my list of titles. But again, for me, it starts with an idea. So we'll start there, and I'm like, man, what are all the different ways we could make this thing work? Like what are all the things that this could mean, and what's the best way to approach it? And then in country music, where you are able to spin a title and make it mean two different things. Can we do that here, or is it cheesy? I mean, but it always starts there, and I usually try to write backwards from there. Okay, like how are we gonna get to here? Is there a story? Are there characters? What are they? Is there a girl in it? That's a big question in country too. So yeah, but it all starts there, and then God knows where it ends up, man. You just hold on, at that point. Once it gets rolling, it's a lot of fun for me. It's like putting together a puzzle blindfolded, except you have to create the pieces too.
That's a good analogy. I like that a lot. But so now, I mean, basically your day job now is writing music.
Yeah.
You get in there into a room, you're writing a song. When you go in, is it something where that day you're going to write a song for you, or you go in and you start writing a song and it just kind of, it's either one for the catalog when it's done, or it's one that you decide that you want to cut?
I never know, man. I actually Josh Van Valkenburg at Sony ATV is the guy who gave me my first shot at a publishing deal. And so I'm at Sony ATV now. And when we started, we talked to Josh, and, he knew that my goal was to be an artist. And he said, well, give me 2 years of just writing. And I'm so glad that I said, okay, yeah, sure. But I'm so glad that he did that, because he knew that I would develop as a songwriter and start to find my own voice. But I never know, man. I never know. I don't like to go into a room and assume the song is going to be for me, because a co-write I'm there for that reason, to write a song with two other people. And I want to hear what they have to say too. And I don't want to back ourselves into a corner just because I'm trying to say something that's left-footed and backwards that, might rip away our chances at Carly Pierce or Luke Combs cut, or whoever is cutting that day. So I never know. I typically, what I try to do, and sometimes it's harder than others, but I try to just let the song be what it wants to be and not force my way into it too hard. You know what I'm saying? And then if at the end of the day, if it turns out that it's for me, great. I put it in a running list of songs that I really like, and if it makes the cut later, it makes the cut. But it took me forever to get to that point, because for me to learn that before songwriting became a profession, and even in the early days of that, they all felt like babies in a way. Like I wanted to protect them and care for them, And after you write, 700, 800 songs, they're not. It's just a song, If I don't get it this day, not a big deal. I'll get it the next day, or we'll get it later. I'll find a song that I like later, or hey, maybe it's worth going back and looking and rewriting those lyrics, even though you spent 7 hours beating your head against the wall to try to make it right. It just depends. It depends on the song, man. But to be honest with you, I never know. I mean, I'll go in knowing that it's a possibility that I might get a song that I love for me that day. But I usually, as vague as this sounds, we will literally say, hey, let's just write the best song we can. And, a lot of people always say the best song wins. And I think that's true. But for me, as long as the song is, my test is, look, if I can imagine myself singing this in 10 years and still believe every word of it and think that these words are true, then I'm cool with it. Then that's what puts it on my list. But you never know until the song is finished.
Well, and you've got a credit on a new song that's just hitting radio by Lainey Wilson called "Things a Man Ought to Know." How much different is that when you're going into the room and you start writing a song that's geared towards a female singer? Do you write any differently that way, or is it really doesn't matter and it's all about the song still?
It totally depends on the artist, man. It totally does. Lainey grew up not too far from where I grew up. She's from Baskin, Louisiana, and if you guys haven't heard her, I go listen. She's so good. But we, I always tell people that we speak the same language and about the way we do things. When I'm writing with her, and there are a few other female artists as well that I can write with and do this, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that they're girls. We usually, I guess maybe even subconsciously, try to write the song in a way that's going to be true for a man and a woman. And it just so happened that particular man, that was a good day. But that particular day, we were sitting there and we were going through our titles, trying to think. And I had this title in it was on my computer that I was trying to figure out a way to write about my pawpaw, my grandfather, for all you who aren't from Mississippi. And things a man ought to know. And it just kind of, in that moment, it kind of hit me. I was like, what does that mean? If she sings it, what does that mean? I'm like, oh man. And so like I say it, and then immediately, Jonathan Singleton starts rolling, Lainey's chiming in, and we're going back and forth, all of this. And the thing just falls out into something that is so special. And let me tell you, here's another thing about Lainey, is that even if she was not an incredibly talented artist, the girl can stand on her 2 feet as a writer. I've written some of my favorite songs ever with Lainey. And it is very similar to Things a Man Ought to Know. I can sing Things a Man Ought to Know, and the song takes on a completely different meaning. And I play it all the time, or I did play it all the time when we were back on tour with Luke. But it was, there's songs like that are really special to me. That was a special day. But yeah, Lainey's great, man. I'm so excited about that song. You
kind of hit the nail on the head there. I mean, you were in a room with two incredibly talented writers. Not that you're not incredibly talented in your own right, but just
they're great.
The room with those two has got to be pretty magical.
And it just depends on the day, man. You can't force anything. I've been in rooms with really great writers where we write awful songs, and they're really bad. They're really bad, and everybody knows they're really bad. But we still, the radio's full. It's full of bad songs.
That is very true.
Cut that part out. No, I mean, all that to say is, at the end of the day, they're not babies. This is just a job. It's just a job. Our job is to write a song and finish a song. We're going to do it that day. So, that day was a special day because we got to do our job. We got to enjoy it, and the song turned out great, man. It doesn't always happen that way, and I think. Yeah, those are both extremely talented writers. Jonathan Singleton is crazy good at anything. He and his brother both are, it's like anything they touch turns to gold. They're super talented guys. And, Lainey's the same way. And I also think that I'm pretty decent at what I do. So it's, you get those people in there, but it doesn't always line up like that. I've written songs with Jonathan that I don't think he or I would play out live or show anybody. So it's all right.
Yeah, keep those ones in the notebook. But let's talk about another song that you just released. Heck, when this comes out, it'll be just over a week ago. It's called Made for Me. How did this song come about?
Again, started with a title. I'll try not to make this too boring. You know what it was for me is like, and I think I hit on this earlier, but it always, at least in my mind, the way I see it is we're all trying to say the same thing. So the way for me to get around just making it unbearable is, how can I say this in a way that was, you'll hear like songwriters say all the time, write what you know, right? So where I grew up, I tried to squeeze those experiences in that thing. I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel here. It's the thing about love is it's such a mystery, and so I think we might spend our entire lives trying to figure out, well, what's it like? Asking questions about what love is. And that's what makes it so easy to write about. Is we're all trying to figure it out. But that's literally what it is. You know, we start going through the song, and man, it's like how this and this go together, you know. And then once you get one, and it's like, man, there's so many of these examples. Why don't we just put them all in here and make them rhyme? and it works out like that, you know. And it's just like I call it my little honky tonk love song. Is all it is. It was another one of those days where I just wanted it to feel good. I actually that day, Jonathan Singleton's brother, Josh Singleton. I was writing with Josh and my buddy Reed Iswell, and we came in and Josh had a lick on the guitar, and I totally railroaded him because I was like, oh man, I've been waiting to write a song with a lick in it forever. And so I was like, what do you think about this? And he was like, well, yeah, sure, if you want to just throw away my idea and use yours. But it all started like that. It started that song actually started with a riff, and then I went back and we looked through titles about, you know, what might fit that feeling that we might be chasing, you know. So that's how that one came about.
Well, here, let's let everybody take a listen to this one. It just came out August 21st. It's called Made for Me by Jason Nix.
Baby, we're made for me. Like a quick stop styrofoam cooler and a 12-pack of cold drink. Like a homemade cane pole and an old Mississippi Creek bank. I like a four-wheel drive and a good mud hole, a back porch swing and some homegrown smoke, like a worn-out left-back blue jean pocket and a skull ring. No, it don't get better than you and me together, like two names in a heart on an old oak tree. No, there ain't nothing like it, girl, you can't deny it, like a country song in this soul six string. Like a tin roof in a summer rain, baby, we're made for me. No. I like a mounted up 8-point buck and some living room drywall. I like a down home good old boy in a hey-yo. Like pretty tail legs and a tailgate, like a good night kiss and a driveway, like a sawdust two-step dance floor and some Sammy Kershaw. No, it don't get better than you and me together, like two names in a heart on an old oak tree. No, there ain't nothing like it, girl, you can't deny it, like a country song in this soul six string. Like a tin roof in a summer rain, baby, we're made for me. Baby, you were made for me. No, it don't get better than you and me together, like two names in a heart on an old oak tree. No, there ain't nothing like it, girl, you can't deny it, like a country song in this old six string. Like a tin roof in a summer rain, baby, we're made for me. Baby, you were made for me.
That is brand new music from Jason Nix called Made for Me. Go out and check it out. He's got music videos out as well, but you've got an EP coming out next month, right?
Yeah, I'm super excited. We've been, not that I don't love the two songs that you've played so far. I do love those a lot, but I feel like there's some really special music on here, and we kind of saved the last three for a reason. So I'm pumped about it, man. I'm excited.
Well, that was my next question: was how many songs were going to be on there? But
Maybe it's like 6, maybe. No, maybe there's 6. Yeah, so there's 4 more that are on there that you haven't heard.
so I'm excited for those, just based off of what we've heard so far. But being that it is 2020, I feel like I have an obligation to ask you how much COVID has screwed up your year.
It hasn't at all, man.
No,
it
that's
hasn't
good.
at all. I mean, okay, financially, let's talk about. Well, so the only con is that I was really looking forward to being on tour with the Muscadine Bloodline Boys, and those guys are great. And we had dates lined up with them. And you know, to be completely transparent, I would have. I needed to make that money, and we didn't get to make that money. So, that kind of put some things in a bind, you know, especially as a new artist, because
Definitely.
I think there are people from where I grew up who think I'm doing great. I'm not. I'm probably making less money than they do. I mean, especially when you're starting, artists don't make a lot of money, and writers don't make a lot of money, and it's sometimes it takes a very long time to get that ball rolling. So that one kind of hurt. But to be honest with you, I think that might be the only con, man. My wife and I bought land with my parents over maybe a year and a half ago, maybe. And so we've been out here. You know, I've got to spend more time with them than ever. And you know, I don't know. Family's become more important to me. But on the flip side of that, you can ask anybody too. I've also worked more since this has happened. I as opposed to when I used to go into town and write one song a day. There's probably 2 to 3 days a week now where I can get on my computer and write 2 really great songs in a day. You know, so I'm cranking out demos. We're working on new music all the time. I'm writing more songs, and to be honest with you, I think they're better. And I was totally opposed to this whole Zoom thing. I didn't do it for about a month because I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm not gonna write a song looking at somebody over a computer. And then I was in the middle of reading a book by one of my favorite authors, is a guy named Rick Bragg, and just got really I don't know, man, inspired. And I sat down and wrote a song that's probably my favorite song I've ever written, and sat there and wrote it myself. And I'm like, okay, I gotta start digging into this thing and trying to make this Zoom thing work, because we don't know how long it's going to last, right? And at the time, that was probably March or early. No, that was April, I think. And man, since then it's actually helped my songwriting. My productivity is going through the roof, I think. So. And I get to be at home while I'm doing it. Now, because I do still work, and I get in trouble for working too much while I'm at home. But, you know, it's like, I don't know. There's probably, for me specifically, with the money part aside, the rest of it I think it's been good for me, man, to be honest with you. I do miss playing music live a lot, but there's some really important things in life that I'm getting to experience that I wouldn't have the chance to do otherwise. So it's
a little bit of
take the good with the bad. Yeah, absolutely, man.
Definitely. Did it change the way that you're releasing music or releasing the EP, or has that just kind of been steady the whole time?
Man, I think it is changing it for everybody, to be honest. With people are starting to get back to work now, but I think what it has done is people are starting to, we're taking things in more because we have a little bit more time to do it. So, I mean, I do feel like there's a need for me to start putting out stuff sooner. And this is really, to be fair, this is really my first push. I've got incredible managers. My management is great. And so at this point, I feel like the entirety of Nashville is trying to figure out, okay, well, what does this mean for us? How are we going to push forward through this? How has the music industry changed? And I think that we're still figuring that out. So our plan is to just put out as much as we can, and to be a little less picky, I guess. At one point we might put out a demo. I put out a song called Let's Get Married that was actually a demo I recorded in a bedroom, and it did just fine. So at this point, we're like, well, if people want music, my job is to serve. I'm here to serve and to try to make people happy. And if that means putting out music, well, I'm not going to wait maybe it's best if I don't wait, even if I don't think it's perfect, maybe we can put it out and people might still like it, So hopefully that doesn't turn around and bite me in the ass, but,
I mean,
but that's the plan.
So many people that are sitting at home and even working from home now that just have music cranked all day long. I mean, you could still be an accountant, but if you're working at home, you're going to have a little bit more music freedom than you do sitting in your office cubicle.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, I would love to have, I would love for people not to get sick of me. Now, sometimes that's inevitable. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but the goal, I think, for me would just be, okay, you don't like this song, try this one. If you don't like that one, try something else. And you can call it quits on me whenever you decide, but I think it's better to have today anyway. I think it's better to have options aren't so bad, especially when you're stuck inside. So.
That is very much true. Well,
Yeah.
Jason, man, I appreciate you jumping on here with us. And before we wrap it up, where can people keep up with you on social media, your website, all that good stuff?
Yeah. So you spell my last name, Nix, Nix. So it's just Jason Nix Music, and that's on all platforms. So through my Facebook page is at Jason Nix Music. Instagram is the same, at Jason Nix Music. There's a Twitter that I rarely use, but it's there. And on TikTok, Lord have mercy. I haven't done the WAP challenge yet, but I'm on there.
So it sounds like that's your next video then. You've been
I
practicing.
think so, man. I think I'm going to throw a hip out of place if I try to do some of that stuff. But
Some of those dances.
yeah.
Well, man, before we let you go, we end every podcast the same way. It's called the Final Four, and it's probably 4 of the toughest questions that I'm going to ask you just because they make you think a little bit, okay?
No, okay.
Okay, here we go. First one, if you could go on tour with anybody alive or dead, who would it be?
Jeez Louise.
It's tough.
Attitudes aside,
Okay.
the Eagles. I'm going to say it.
I like it. That's not a bad pick. Okay, how about this? Where were you and who were you with the first time you heard somebody else playing your music, and what was that feeling like? Like playing it over the radio or at a club or in a store?
I was in. I don't remember where I was. It was somebody. You know what? It probably was really a lame story, like a family member or something. I don't think I have an exciting one. I guarantee it was my mom. My mom was the first time I ever heard anybody playing. So it wasn't. Yeah, it just came up on a playlist or something. Sorry, that's not a very exciting answer, man. Sorry about that.
Okay, how about this one? Who are your 3 most recent artists on Spotify?
Let's look.
There you go.
Oh, this is going to be embarrassing. Actually, no. Don Schlitz. Hold on. How do I find the most recently played? Okay. Oh, buddy. My buddy Drew Parker, Don Schlitz, and the soundtrack from Hannah Montana, the movie.
There you go.
Don Williams is also 4th. I feel like I wish he could have taken the Hannah Montana spot, but I had to be honest.
Could have kept that one hidden. And it's funny you mentioned Drew Parker. He was on the last episode of this podcast, and he had a tough time with this question.
Oh, man. And he's a great guy and a lot better at interviews than I am. So you got me worried.
No. Okay, last one here. Favorite on-stage memory?
Oh, this is so easy for me, man. Okay. It's 2012. The year is 2012. We are in I have pictures of this too. I need to send you this picture because this is amazing. We are opening. I'm with Kanan. We're opening for Sugarland, and so usually at the end of the tour we'll do a big tour prank. So this is the end of the tour. We are in Salt Lake City, Utah, and Jennifer at the time is pregnant, and those 2 people were so hospitable to us. Very sweet people. So their big moment in their show is Why Don't You Stay, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. Well, I had spent, I have a beard now, but at that point I was mostly clean shaven. I was thinner then. So I was clean shaven, and but I had spent the entire tour growing out this huge handlebar mustache because I'm a sideman and I can do whatever I want to do.
Classic.
So we decided we had to decide what the tour prank was going to be. We went and talked to their production manager. I was like, "Hey, is it cool if we can do this?" He said, "Oh, hell yeah, absolutely." So I put on these orange skinny jeans, which I don't know if you guys are. I'm a pretty big guy. I've got legs like tree trunks, and so to see a man with like that, and skinny jeans is funny already, but if they're orange, it was ridiculous. So I rolled them up to my calves, put on a neon green tank top, and we go out we set up 2 bar stools as they're playing the song, right? Why Don't You Stay? People are in tears, not because of us, but because the song is so good. And we go out there, and Kanan brings a razor, and it was me and Kanan and Lauren Elena. Lauren Elena cups her hands underneath my face, and while Kanan starts shaving my handlebar mustache during the most emotional song in their set, and without skipping a beat, Christian Bush starts singing, and they change the lyrics to "Why Don't You Shave?" And so at the end of it, I am mustacheless in front of 15,000 people, and everybody got a good laugh out of it, man. It's one of my favorite tour memories ever.
Man, that's going to be a tough one to beat, I think.
It was a lot of fun. That tour was a blast, man. It was a lot of fun.
Well, Jason, man, thank you so much for jumping on here. I've had a blast, and we'll have to do it again in the future.
Man, yeah, I would love to. Thank you so much for having me, and you're really good at interviewing people, man. Just
thank you. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, you're great at this. Keep doing it.
I appreciate that a ton, man. And guys, that was another episode of the Tea Party Podcast. It's a country music podcast where you find new friends and new music like Jason Nix and Made for Me.